Kohi, a daycare mom in Grand Junction, Colorado, horrifying closet find. Wrapped in plastic, she found what she believed to be a human head. Shocked and terrified, she immediately called her husband, Brian Sr., and then dialed 911. The dispatcher calmly instructed her to stay put until officers arrived. Terry's mind raced. How could her son, who had shown no violent tendencies, be involved in something so gruesome? The family's life was about to change forever. Brian Sr. rushed home after Terry's frantic call. The couple waited outside their house, their minds filled with dread. When the police arrived, Terry explained the chilling discovery. Officers entered the home and confirmed the presence of a severed head in the sink. Wrapped in plastic, Brian Jr., who had just returned from a friend's house, was questioned. He calmly admitted to the crime, shocking everyone. The officers quickly placed him in handcuffs, while his parents struggled to comprehend how their son could be capable of such a heinous act. Warren Barnes, a 69-year-old man known as the Reading Man in downtown Grand Junction, had gone missing on February 27, 2021. Warren was a familiar face, often seen sitting outside Monique's bridal shop, reading books and feeding birds. Monique Leonard, the shop owner, had grown fond of Warren over the years. When he didn't show up for work on March honest, she became concerned. Warren had never missed a day of work in 4 years. Monique posted his photo on Facebook, urging the community to help find him. Little did she know, Warren's fate was already sealed. On the night of February 27th, Brian Jr. drove his 2007 Ford 500 into the Colorado River near the Blue Heron boat launch. He called his parents for help, claiming it was an accident. Brian Sr. and Terry arrived, and the scene was light-hearted despite the late hour. Brian Jr. seemed unharmed but cold. The car was partially submerged, and a tow truck was called to retrieve it. As the car was pulled from the river, officers noticed something alarming: blood on the bumper. Brian Jr. denied being injured, leaving everyone puzzled about the source of the blood. The next morning, Brian Sr. decided to clean his son's car, which had been in the river for hours. As he vacuumed out the water, he made a chilling discovery: a large knife in the glove box and a wallet that didn't belong to Brian Jr. The wallet contained a social security card and a business card from Labor Ready, a temp agency. Brian Sr. called the agency and learned the wallet belonged to Warren Barnes, who had been reported missing. The pieces of the puzzle were starting to come together, but the full picture was still unclear. When confronted by his father about the wallet and knife, Brian Jr. claimed he found the wallet while walking near the river. However, Terry's discovery of the severed head in his room shattered his alibi. Brian Jr. calmly confessed to murdering Warren Barnes, stating he had always wondered what it felt like to kill someone. He described how he stabbed Warren under a bridge, decapitated him, and disposed of the body in the river. His parents were horrified, struggling to reconcile the son they knew with the cold-blooded killer he had become. Police officers arrived at the Kohi residence and secured the scene. Brian Jr. was cooperative, even polite, as he was placed in a patrol car. Officers searched the house and found the severed head and hands in the kitchen sink, just as Terry had described. Brian Jr. provided detailed information about the crime, including the location of Warren's body. The investigation shifted to the river, where officers began searching for the rest of the remains. The community was about to be rocked by the gruesome details of the crime. Officers scoured the area near the bridge where Brian Jr. claimed to have killed Warren. They quickly found body parts scattered along the riverbank, confirming Brian's story. The scene was gruesome, with arms and legs partially buried in the mud. Forensic teams were called in to collect evidence, while detectives worked to piece together the timeline of events. The discovery of Warren's remains brought a sense of closure to the search, but raised more questions about Brian Jr.'s motives and mental state. At the Mesa County Sheriff's Office, Brian Jr. was interrogated by detectives. He calmly recounted the murder, describing how he stabbed Warren multiple times and decapitated him. Brian admitted to being in a bad state of mind that night, driven by a desire to experience murder. Detectives were struck by his lack of remorse and the chilling ease with which he described the crime. Brian's calm demeanor only added to the horror of his actions. Brian Sr. and Terry were interviewed separately, struggling to make sense of their son's actions. They described Brian Jr. as a quiet, non-violent teenager who had shown no signs of violent behavior. Brian Sr. recalled how his son had always been fascinated with crime scenes and had even expressed interest in becoming a crime scene investigator. Terry revealed that Brian had been diagnosed with ADHD and autism, but had never exhibited violent tendencies. News of Warren Barnes' murder and Brian Jr.'s arrest spread quickly through Grand Junction. The community was in shock, mourning the loss of a man who had become a local fixture. Monique Lena, who had known Warren for years, expressed her grief, describing him as a kind and gentle soul. Many wondered how someone like Brian Jr., who had no prior criminal record, could commit such a brutal act. Brian Jr. was charged with first-degree murder and pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity. His defense argued that his mental illnesses prevented him from understanding the gravity of his actions. The prosecution, however, painted a picture of a calculated killer who had planned the murder for months. The trial lasted 12 days, with the jury hearing graphic details of the crime. Brian's calm demeanor during the trial only added to the chilling nature of the case. After 2 days of deliberation, the jury found Brian Jr. guilty of first-degree murder. Judge Richard Gurley, who had presided over the case, described it as one of the most horrific he had seen in his 37-year career. Brian was sentenced to life in prison plus 13 years, with no possibility of parole. The verdict brought a sense of justice for Warren's family and the community. The Kohi family was left to pick up the pieces after the trial. Terry's daycare business suffered as parents pulled their children out, fearing the association with a murderer. Brian Sr. struggled with the loss of his family's reputation, contemplating a move away from Grand Junction. The couple grappled with guilt, wondering if they had missed signs of their son's violent tendencies. Warren Barnes was remembered as a kind and gentle man who loved reading and feeding birds. A sculpture of a tree chair and a stack of books was commissioned in his memory, placed outside Monique's bridal shop. The community came together to honor his life, holding a memorial service attended by friends and family. Warren's death served as a reminder of the importance of treating everyone with dignity and respect, regardless of their circumstances. Psychologists who evaluated Brian Jr. during the trial noted his fascination with crime and violence. They concluded that his mental illnesses, combined with a morbid curiosity, had driven him to commit the murder. Brian's lack of remorse and his detailed descriptions of the crime suggested a deep-seated detachment from reality. The case raised questions about the intersection of mental illness and criminal behavior, sparking debates about how society handles individuals with similar tendencies. The case garnered national attention, with media outlets covering every detail of the trial. The media frenzy brought unwanted attention to Grand Junction, with residents expressing mixed feelings about the coverage. In the months following the trial, the Kohi family faced ongoing challenges. Terry's daycare business never fully recovered, and the family struggled financially. Brian Sr. took on extra work to make ends meet, while Terry sought therapy to cope with the trauma. The couple's relationship was strained as they grappled with the guilt and shame of their son's actions. Grand Junction slowly began to heal from the shock of Warren's murder. Community members organized events to honor his memory and raise awareness about mental health. Local leaders called for increased funding for mental health services, hoping to prevent similar tragedies in the future. The case of Brian Kohi Jr. highlighted the importance of early intervention for individuals with mental health issues. Experts emphasized the need for better access to mental health services, particularly for young people. The case also underscored the importance of recognizing warning signs of violent behavior, even in individuals who appear nonviolent. Brian Kohi Jr. began serving his life sentence in a Colorado prison, where he would spend the rest of his days. His parents, while devastated, found solace in the support of their community. Warren Barnes' memory lived on through the sculpture and the stories shared by those who knew him. The case of the Reading Man murder became a cautionary tale, reminding everyone of the fragility of life and the importance of compassion and understanding in the face of tragedy. The case of Brian Kohi Jr. became a staple in true crime discussions, with many analyzing the psychological aspects of the crime. Despite the challenges they faced, the Kohi family remained resilient. Terry and Brian Sr. focused on rebuilding their lives, finding strength in their love for each other. They became advocates for mental health awareness, sharing their story in hopes of preventing similar tragedies. Warren Barnes's legacy continued to inspire those who knew him. The sculpture outside Monique's bridal shop became a symbol of his love for reading and his gentle spirit. Community members often left flowers and books at the side, keeping his memory alive. Warren's story served as a reminder of the importance of treating everyone with dignity and respect, regardless of their circumstances. His life, though tragically cut short, left a lasting impact on those who knew him. The case of Brian Kohi Jr. sparked broader discussions about mental health and criminal justice reform. Experts called for increased funding for mental health services and better training for law enforcement in dealing with individuals with mental illnesses. While the tragedy was devastating, it served as a catalyst for change, prompting communities to take a closer look at how they address mental health and violence. Years after the murder, the case of Brian Kohi Jr. continued to resonate with those who followed it. The story served as a reminder of the complexities of human behavior and the importance of compassion and understanding. Warren Barnes's memory lived on, inspiring acts of kindness and community support. Kohi family honors Warren's legacy. The Reading Man case. A life's fragility, community's strength.